So one thing that I saw here that was really exciting, I saw a lot of branded traffic, and that's pretty rare. Like with a new blog, to already have some branded traffic, that's really exciting. So like having Yummy Tummy in here, super cool. That's a really good sign because the more branded traffic you can get, the more trust you're going to build. So that's why I try to tell people like focus on building a brand. Don't just focus on building a website in a niche. Like become a brand in that niche, and become someone who's really known in that particular vertical. And I think this is a really good sign. And I think with some refinement and a little more focus, there's a lot of good things here. So that's super exciting. One thing you can do to see is like if we take this, and this is the brand, and we go to exclude, and we'll take URLs out. This is how you know that like there needs to be more focus on these non-branded keywords, right? So like these are the opportunities that we need to be going after ultimately. And it looks like a lot of these targets are low competition. So it means that you've done pretty good on keyword research overall. So that's definitely a good sign. So the next thing I want to look at is the actual links. So we're going to go and look at the links and we're going to look at the link quality. This is actually always the first thing I do. Whenever I analyze a site, I immediately go to the links because, unfortunately, link building is by far the most spammed part of the SEO process for most people. So, but once again, when I saw this, I was actually really impressed with these links. It looks like you're leveraging some of like your marketing expertise, or your wife is using some of her marketing expertise to get links on these sites like Fit Small Business. Super smart. That's a really good strategy. And I like that a lot. So she has a ton of really good links. And yes, some of them aren't like the most relevant, but these are high quality websites. So you are certainly going to benefit from these, but I would definitely start to focus more on increasing the relevance of the link profile. So like right now you have, you're building good authority, but now we need to work on the relevance, because that's like, if this is the relevance circle right now, it's really low, but you have the authority that's really high. You have a big circle of authority. So we want the relevance to take over. And so you need to focus more on food blogs, or things like of that nature. And I would review the relevancy pyramid that I talk about, because right now, like this is basically the bottom of the pyramid as far as relevance. Like you're on the widest part. And yes, these sites are fine. They're good to get links from. They're going to build your authority. But like I said, we want to start at the top and work our way down to these. But to be honest, most people don't even have any high quality links. So I'd say this is a win right away. Now, one thing here. So first of all, relevance, we need to increase the relevance. Number two, too many links to the homepage and too little links to internal pages. So if we go and look at the Best by Links section here, we'll see that most links going to the site are going to the homepage. So we want to get some deep links to these pages that are actually keyword targeted. So driving links to the homepage is great because you can send link equity to the other pages, but ultimately, you have to fulfill two different link gaps. So you have to fulfill the link gap on the domain level, but you also have to fulfill the link gap on the page level too. So oftentimes people get wrapped up in driving links to the homepage, but the reason why you're not performing for a lot of these other keywords is because you haven't narrowed that link gap on the page level too. So we need to be doing both of those. So that's the first thing on that front. Now, one thing that I would recommend you doing, and this doesn't really have to do with SEO, is go ahead and take some of these links here, and the really high quality ones. So I would sort by like DR, like this. And I would take yahoo.com, MarketWatch, Fit Small Business, maybe just those three. And then I would go to the homepage and I would put featured on, and I would put those logos. And the reason for that is because you want to start to build authority and trust. So when people come to the site, just generally it's more trusted, right? So if a site is more trusted, it's much more likely to be able to actually acquire links. So really easy thing to do, but I would make it very prominent on the homepage, maybe on some other pages as well. Like, really don't be afraid to show it. It's super important. Okay, so then what I did, we'll talk about these action items here in a second, but what I did is I just basically took one of your keywords, and I'll go and just show you Actually, I think I already have it up right here. Okay, right here. So, and totally forgive me if I butcher any of these words, which there's a high probability that I will butcher almost all of these words. So apologies in advance. So Dabeli recipes, is that correct? Just, can someone give me a, okay, that's good. All right, cool. Yeah, oh, you said you do Haro. Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, those look like Haro links. So I would keep doing that, but also you're going to want to start to bring in more relevant links as well. Start to build out those relevant opportunities too. And we can talk about, maybe that a little bit later. But anyway, I took this one keyword just as an example of what needs to be done. So first thing right away that I like to do is when I find an opportunity like this, first, you can sort and identify opportunities just based on KD alone and get a pretty good idea of like where to go. But I saw this one because it had high volume and low KD for the most part. A site that's this new, I'd probably go even lower than this. So I'd probably set this filter to like 0, just because I really want to target the stuff that's not going to require a lot of links, because links require a big investment. So if you're trying to stay lean, we don't want to have to invest a bunch of money into links to rank. So especially in the beginning. But regardless, this one here right away, you can tell if you just click this little, sorry, this thing's in my way. If you click the SERP button right here, you'll be able to see the gaps between you and the competitors for that specific keyword phrase. So right away, there's a clear gap, right? So if we took the averages here, we would see that we're not only losing on the domain level as far as authority goes, but we're losing on the page level too. So both of these gaps need to be, you need to narrow these gaps if you want to be able to rank. Now, the good news is when we look at these, if you just use the AR metric, which is the Ahrefs rank, or DR, you could use either, you can see these sites aren't super authoritative. So like, this is a really good sign right here. You have this Profusion Curry that has a DR of 32, which is not high at all. So certainly doable. You just need a little more focus. So that's the first thing, is narrowing that link gap. Now we're going to dive into the actual page. And it's going to be a little bit of qualitative analysis just so you can see a couple things here. So first thing I always do when a page isn't performing as well as I think it should is I want to see, like, does it actually load fast? Does it have a good experience? So first thing, throw it right into Google PageSpeed Insights. And right away we see the experience is not where it should be. So this is one of the easiest wins. You don't even need to improve the content. You can just improve the loading speed on this particular website and page. So in a case like this, like, I don't normally make this recommendation, but when you're doing with like a pure content site like this, like, you should really consider using AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages, because that can really make your life a lot easier. But I think we talked about this on Tuesday. You should also consider using GeneratePress, because you can take this theme, this exact theme, or even this design, and you can replicate it with GeneratePress because it's so customizable. So I would consider using a lighter theme, maybe using AMP. If you don't want to use AMP, then I would use WP Rocket to increase the loading speed. And you can also look into NitroPack too. So WP Rocket or NitroPack. I personally use WP Rocket, but NitroPack really does the same thing. And then I would also consider looking into some sort of CDN like Cloudflare. I use, on my website, I have a combination of GeneratePress, WP Rocket, AMP, and Cloudflare. So I have like really the most potent thing you can do to generate that type of speed on my site. So like I said, when you're working with content sites like this, speed matters a ton. It really makes a big difference. So that's the first thing. Now, I'm going to go over, like, some of this stuff applies to the page. Some of it applies to, just some of the site in general. So let's go ahead and look here. I'll exit off of that. So first couple things here that don't even really have to do with the content. Number one, all of these social icons, they're not linking to anything. So you just have a bunch of outbound links to, Facebook.com, and, this just isn't adding any value. So, and even if you did, I wouldn't be putting this above the fold, because all this is going to do is push people off of the website. We want people to stay on the website. We want to keep them here as long as possible. We want to have high dwell time. So anything that's going to make them click off, we need to be very careful of it, especially when it's above the fold like this. So I would just eliminate this altogether. And I noticed that you actually have it over here too, but you're not linking out to the actual profiles at all. I think only maybe one of them is. So that's the first thing. Very simple. Next thing is, I would consider decluttering this menu. So you do not need to have the privacy policy in the primary menu. Like this menu is their most important user experience element on the page. So I would just move this way to the bottom or into the footer. Like don't waste precious real estate to have a privacy policy there. So that's the first thing. And then, I wouldn't even have categories. Like I would make this more specific. So like you have recipes, but then you have categories. But these are really just recipes, right? So I would just move maybe these under the recipes, because you have this I actually really like this. What you did here is this recipes index. I think this is a terrific idea with some refinement. It could be even better. And I think it's actually attracted a few links too. So definitely doing something right here. I really like this idea a lot. So I would stick with that, make it more comprehensive and try to make the experience a little bit better. Because one thing you got to be careful of is like this, it's hard to see if these are clickable. So like just from a pure user experience perspective, like, there's no clear indication that these are clickable unless you hover over, right? So we want to make sure that these are very clickable. So maybe like a read more button or something like that to get people to know that there is some sort of call to action to go further into the site. Now, let's go down here. Another thing here is I would really think about what social platforms actually matter for this specific vertical. So do people really share recipes on LinkedIn? Probably not. Like it's probably pretty rare that anyone would share a recipe on LinkedIn. It's just not the right channel for that. And Twitter, once again, I feel like, pretty unlikely that that's going to be happening on Twitter. It's just not really the behavior that people have. However, Pinterest, obviously #1 target. So this is just a classic, decision fatigue type of situation. So even if someone wanted to share this, there's just too many options, right? Because imagine one person probably has profiles on all of these. So what are they going to decide which one is best for them? So you do not want the user to be thinking. Like we don't want them to have to think about their next action. It should come extremely natural. So if this was my website and I had, it was purely like visual and informational in nature like this, and specifically recipes, I'd focus purely on Pinterest and try to get as many Pinterest shares as I possibly could. And I would just eliminate everything else. Because Facebook might be fine. I'd say Facebook would be second place, but overall Pinterest is like by far the most important channel for this specific vertical. So I would definitely make that the priority. And then also this 0 shares, this just creates negative social proof. So whatever plugin you're using, go and like eliminate it so that it doesn't show shares unless there's a certain amount. So like once it hits maybe like 50 or 100 shares, then it will show the number. But up until that point, you don't want to show it because it could be negative social proof. Because think about it, someone lands here and they're like, oh, wow, this has 0 shares. Like subconsciously, they're just like, oh, this is probably not very good, even if that's not true. So we definitely don't want that to happen. Now, the next thing, I've seen this happen a lot on these types of websites, but too many people, and actually, I'm just thinking of it like recently, because yesterday I was looking for like a recipe. And every time I land on a site like this, like I have to scroll on my phone literally for like 5 minutes to eventually get to the recipe. And every time I do it, I'm like, why do they do that? Why do they put the recipe all the way at the bottom? And it's just bad. It's a bad user experience, because the goal is to make the experience absolutely amazing. And most importantly, to satisfy the intent as clearly as possible. So someone searching for this recipe, they want the recipe, they want the recipe because that is the intent. They're looking for a recipe. Yes, they want to learn how to make it. Yes, that's important. But really, the intent here is they're looking specifically for the recipe. So if we go on here and we find the recipe, we're way below the fold, right? So I would take this and I would put it all the way up here. I would have no more than maybe one to three sentences before it. Nothing like that's going to push it down very far. And in fact, I'd probably even eliminate this featured image just so the user can get to the recipe as fast as possible. I think that's just 100% the way to do it. Like, for example, if we look up, I have like a post about, let's see, red subscribe buttons right here. So like if you look up red YouTube subscribe buttons or some variation of this, you'll probably find my site. But like, this is an example that I use in the new training, but someone looking for red subscribe buttons is looking for red subscribe buttons. They're not looking for me to explain what red subscribe buttons are. They already know what they are. They just want the designs. So obviously this should be loading, but I don't know why it's not loading, but ignore that for a second. All right. So like I said, we need to make sure we satisfy the intent as fast as possible. So give the searcher exactly what they're looking for right away. And so like one thing here, I could have easily put like a featured image like this and have like all the red buttons, like, in a kind of like a collage type of situation. But I realized like, what's the point? Like I just want to give them the designs right away. So that's what you should do. Just eliminate that altogether, push the recipe way above the fold so that someone doesn't have to scroll to get to it. So that's something I would highly, highly recommend doing. All right. So let's look at what else we got here. Next one is this table of contents. You're probably using a plugin for this. I think I've used this plugin before. Nothing wrong with this plugin per se, but in my experience, it's much better to use a custom table of contents. So because you have more control over it. And then when you start to get the site links in the actual search results, they'll be much more targeted. So, you won't have all these like weird numbers like 2.1, 2.2. So I would actually, even having a plugin to create a table of contents actually will increase your website loading speed in a bad way. So it's going to make it slower. So just eliminating that plugin and doing making it custom in each post, there's a lot of benefits to doing it. So I would definitely recommend that. And also, if you're going to use a table of contents like this, and you want to stick with this, then I would probably just keep it collapsed because what it's doing is like, it's pushing everything below the fold once again. So next thing, all right. So this is more about user experience more than SEO, but these things are closely linked together, right? So they're kind of all blending together. Now, I noticed that you're kind of like bolding certain things here. That's kind of like an old school tactic where you used to like bold the primary keyword that you're going after. It's not really going to have any effect. So only use the strong tags or the bolding if it has some sort of reason to do it within the content. But otherwise, if you're doing it just for SEO purposes, it's not going to do really anything at all. You did it again here. So just I wouldn't really do that. The next thing is I would avoid underlining headlines. And the reason is because it's hard to differentiate between a headline and a link because general user experience practice on the internet is that links are underlined, right? So that's just the way we view links. They're usually underlined. So I would make this a heading and I would make it not have any underlining at all. And then I would make your links much more prominent going along with that same thing. So if we go down, I think you have, let's see, we'll go look at the links here. So you have a link right here, but it's really hard to see. And it's even harder to see now that I just did that. So give me 1 second here. Refresh it. Okay, so we look at the link. It blends into the content really, really well. And that's not what we want. We want links to be really prominent. So definitely make the link contrast with the content. So it needs to be a certain color, have it in the color scheme. And also it is underlined, which is good. But like when you look at these links, like look how clear it is that these are links. Like there's no ambiguity that these are links, right? So, and also the hover. That's how you know it's a link to, is to have a change when you hover. So these things are small, but like they do make a difference. Like they really do make a difference. So that's that from a user experience perspective. Now let's see. This had to do with readability. So when we look at this, you need more spacing, right? So like when we look at this paragraph here, it just blends right into the next heading. We need to space this stuff out, especially when someone's on mobile. Like there needs to be way more space in between. So this is just a matter of fixing the padding or the margin, the CSS to fix this. The good news is with GeneratePress, you can do this stuff so easily, super, super easily. All right. Now, at this point, we understand there's a lot of user experience stuff that needs to be optimized. Now let's talk about the content itself. So one thing that I always do when I want to improve a piece of content, or I'm looking at a page that I want to increase the rankings, if it has the appropriate word count, so I took the primary keyword here and I put it into Surfer. First thing I want to see is like, does it have the appropriate word count for this particular keyword? The answer is yes, okay? However, just because it has the word count doesn't mean that it's high quality, right? So you've hit the word count, but now we need to optimize the quality of the content too. So just doing this alone is great. Like most people don't even do this. So you're definitely ahead just by hitting the word count. Now, a couple things. Before you even think about optimizing with Surfer, we need to just clean the content up. We need to make it better. And the way to do that is just use another tool, and you can use two. I use them in combination. Typically, I start with Hemingway because it helps you build out sentence structure, make it really clean. So I basically took all the content, I threw it right in here into Hemingway, and this is basically just showing me, all of the opportunities here, right? So this tool is amazing. Every single thing that I write online, whether it's a little small tweet, a blog post, a YouTube video script, like anything that I write, I put it in here first and make sure that it reads well. So it's just small stuff like all the adverbs, essentially, like you don't need essentially, you just take it out. Sentence is exactly the same. So it's just cleaner. It makes the content cleaner. And it's crazy. Just by using this tool alone, your writing gets substantially better just because you're starting to see what good sentence structure looks like, and just generally, what good writing looks like. This is a 100% free tool. So really no reason to not be using it to improve the quality of our content. So that's the first thing. First, I would clean it up here. Then I would take it and I would put it into Grammarly. And looking at this, obviously, there's a lot of mistakes because I didn't do it with Hemingway first. But same thing. Like I would aim to get this score up to at least a 90. And I've actually seen a direct correlation between improving just the quality of the content, not anything else, not like, not driving links to the page, just making the actual copy better, more readable, no grammar errors, no spelling errors. It will improve performance. It will. And you can tell, like, there's a lot of opportunities here. Like Grammarly is giving you 114 suggestions on just this one blog post. So a part of the process that we go through when we're creating content, either for, our own websites or our clients' websites, a piece of content never even hits the website before it goes through Grammarly. Like it just doesn't happen. Like it needs to go through Grammarly. It needs to pass this check before it goes onto the website. And in fact, it needs to go through Grammarly and Hemingway first before we put it through Surfer. And like I said, or before we optimize it with Surfer. So in this case, like let's say it was optimized well with Grammarly and Hemingway. Now we can start to optimize it with Surfer. And so, but you don't want to do this first, because if you're going to be restructuring and reworking the content, then optimizing is just wasted effort. So want to restructure, upgrade, improve the content, then optimize it. So, and there's a lot of opportunities there. Now, a couple other things that are just kind of some minor stuff that I would personally do if this was my piece of content. I would add more unique images. And so even if you don't necessarily have unique images of these particular ingredients, all you need to do is find a really high quality image of the ingredient, go onto Canva, and then just make like a little border that's, relevant to whatever your website theme is. Slap your logo on there, and then boom, you have a unique image. So it's so easy to do that. And it makes really a big difference. Like, for example, I'll just show you like on Gotcha SEO on our about page. I took images that already exist and I made them unique to our brand. So, I'm talking about Occam's razor here on the about page. This is not my image. I just went to Google and I found it. But I threw it into Canva, put a little border on it, and then put my text on it. And now this image is unique. No one else has this image, right? So all I did was I just went into Canva and did that. And then I did it again with Steve Jobs. And then I did it again with this. None of these images are unique, but I've made them unique to my website. Even this Ahrefs chart, like this is Ahrefs. I didn't try to hide that it's Ahrefs, but regardless, go and make the images as unique as possible. And then lastly, try to, if you can, this is a long-term thing. So, don't think about doing it now because there's a lot more work that needs to be done here. But I would definitely consider trying to do video, because video, this industry, there's so much opportunity to do video. Like it's huge. So definitely do that. I'm gonna stop my share here for a second and let's see, because I think my internet is something crazy is going to happen here in a second. So I might disconnect here for a second and then actually, I'm not going to do that because it might disrupt the recording. All right, I'll just keep going. Disregard. All right. So, okay, and then also I would look for opportunities to add external links too. So like look for opportunities to add links to really high quality websites within your vertical, or to, .gov or .edu sites. Anything like that can increase the quality of the content and the trust of the content too. So definitely would do that as well. So everything I'm explaining here, like this process, this is the process you should go through with every single page. I'm doing it just for this page, but this should be the process for every single page. Now, one last thing here. This doesn't have anything to do with SEO. This has everything to do with conversions. But at the bottom here, it's a great idea to have a call to action at the bottom. But once again, similar to the social shares, too many calls to action, right? So, we want to have just one clear call to action. So, do you want them to share the recipe on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Pinterest? Or do you want them to subscribe to the recipe newsletter? So you've basically given them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different options. And of course, actually, sorry, 6, because you're asking them to go to your blog too. So we want to just focus on whatever the one action that you think is most important. Focus on that one action. Like don't give them any other options. And that will greatly improve the conversions of whatever you're trying to do. Sometimes in a case like this, I'd probably want to get them on my email list, because if I get them on my email list, now I actually can promote new content to them and build traction that way a lot better. It's certainly nice to get a social share, but at the end of the day, like a social share is not going to get them on your list more than likely. So I would really probably push to get them on your email list. So having some sort of email opt-in down here or something of that nature would be really smart. Now, speaking of that, go up here and we look at this, your newsletter. Super smart to have a newsletter. Like I mentioned, like you want to try to get people onto your email list, because that will make everything easier. It'll make your content promotion easier. You'll be able to promote affiliate offers. You'll be able to promote new products. Like your list there's gold when it comes to your list. Now, it's not easy to get people on your list, right? So you need to give them a reason to want to join your email list. So right here, this says, join my newsletter and never miss the new recipes that I publish. It's sure, maybe they want to get new recipes, but in reality, like you're not really giving them a really strong reason or motivation to join. So to put it in perspective, like if we go to Gotcha SEO and we look at, we'll go to this post here, on page SEO. This particular page and email opt-in right here, this has like a 60% conversion rate, okay, for emails. So when you click on this, notice I'm not telling them to just join my list. I'm giving them a complete on-page SEO checklist. And I'm also not even asking for the name. I'm just asking just for one simple email. That's it. So this is so, like, when I learned this, and fortunately I've been doing this for a long time, but when I learned this, it was like game changing. I used to get no one on my email list because, like, hey, join my list so I can send you free SEO advice. No one wants that, because remember, people are only interested in what they're going to get. We are all self-motivated. It's just the way that it is. So we want to give them an incentive to actually join the email list. It's to build goodwill with them too. So I just can't express this enough. Like, come up with, I'd say probably like just sit down with a Google Doc and come up with 10 to 20 free things that you can give them. And it doesn't need to be monumental. It can be literally just like, like seven secret recipes that I've never shared on my blog before. Something very simple to get them to join. But we want to create some sort of intrigue to get them to join. So, in the case of my site, obviously, like, I've already given the whole checklist here, but this is just basically making their life easier so they don't have to go to my blog post every time to do it. So anything that makes it easier for them, anything that's, you're somewhat hiding from them, creating intrigue, anything like that. But ultimately, give them something for free that's of value. Super important. So now a couple things. Let's see here. All right, so these are some of the action items that I wanted to cover with you. So like, this was just all one post, covered many things there. But one thing that I really, really think you need to consider when we look at the site, go back to the homepage here. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see with people who start niche websites or even try to build an authority website, they try to be huge before they're small. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. Like, it's much better to be really small and do really well in a very small vertical and really hit your peak there, and then decide to enter another vertical, another branch ultimately. But you don't want to try to start to be like the go-to place for everything. So like, when we look at this, clearly that's what's happening here, because you have easy and healthy recipes for everyone. You never want to do anything for everyone. It's too hard to please everyone. So we want to get really granular, really specific in what this blog is about and who it's for. And ultimately, when you're trying to decide what that is, think about like what you or your wife, like what you specialize in. Like, what does she do exceptionally well that she could create recipes on all the time? And just reading through, like, if we look at this, you have breakfast, you have fast food, you have healthy salad, you have starters, Indian bread, keto recipe. Like, you're trying to hit every possible category really that there is. Way too difficult. It's so hard to do that. You would need literally an army of writers to be able to even compete on all these different levels. So what I recommend doing is figuring out where you're really, really good. Like, figure out what that is and make that the niche that you focus on. So, maybe that might be like Indian recipes. So like, when I was thinking through, it's like, how would I break this down? How would I get more granular? And I was looking at some of these things. Like, I haven't even heard of some of these dishes. Like, I'm clearly ignorant over here, but this is clearly, there's a market for this. So what I did is I just went into, Ahrefs, and I just looked up Indian recipes and see like, what are we working with here? And honestly, a 35 KD for something that broad, an entire culture of recipes, that's not bad. Like, I'd be excited if I saw that, because yeah, sure, maybe you're not going to rank for Indian recipes tomorrow, but long-term, if you build your whole entire website around Indian recipes and you become the topical authority on that, you will rank for that. I guarantee it. So but it's so critical that you pick an area that you want to go in, because it makes everything else easier. It makes your content creation easier. It makes building topical relevance and authority easier. It makes building out your site architecture easier. Because when we look at this, like your site architecture right now is like, let's try to do everything, and that's just not going to work. So I would get really, really specific. And I'm not saying you should do Indian recipes. There's just polling based on what I saw, but the main takeaway is really hone in on something that you want to be really known for, and don't do anything else until you've dominated that, because otherwise everything else is going to be a distraction, and it's going to be hard to build topical authority. So like in the case of Gotcha SEO, I've only ever written about SEO for the first like 6 years of my blog. And then finally I was like, hey, maybe I'll start writing about YouTube SEO. But like I went a really long time before even venturing into those things. And that's because you have to be really, really focused and to build that topical authority. And it'll actually make link acquisition easier, because now when people are thinking about like, oh, what are the top recipe blogs, or top Indian recipe blogs, you're going to be the one that they think of, right? Instead of like, what are the top recipe blogs? How many recipe blogs are there? There's probably like 1 million. So, you getting specific just makes everything much easier. And then one thing you can do too, obviously use Ahrefs to look for opportunities. But if you go into Answer the Public too, like look at these opportunities, like just right here alone. And of course you need to go and see what volume there is. But at this point, when you're this early, like you should just be trying to tackle everything that's uncompetitive, even if it doesn't have search volume, because I guarantee there are some people searching these things. They may not be a lot, but there are people doing it. So like, for example, Indian recipes during pregnancy, a very, very simple thing. But if we go and look, I bet you Ahrefs will say that this has probably no traffic at all, right? There you go. Has no traffic, right? But we know that people are searching it. There's 100% there are people searching it. So don't always trust these tools. And oftentimes these are absolutely the best keywords to go after, because no one else will go after them, because they go into the tools and they don't see volume. So like, well, we'll go after the ones that have volume. So this is how you build topical authority and relevance. And especially when your site is new, like this should be where you live, is targeting these types of things. And you can tell, like, there are so many ideas here, so many, like they're unlimited. You could spend years going into all these different ideas. You can also go into Google and just type this in, and Answer the Public will give you most of what you want, but just do like, you can start to look through here and see like some other ideas, do different combinations. But like Indian recipes in an air fryer, like it's a pretty cool topic. And this is the part that's really cool. That it's qualified. So if we see this and we go back in here, let's see how much volume this particular idea has. Has no volume, right? Oh, okay, well, we must not target it. Well, let's go back and look at all the reviews that these recipes have. These reviews are qualification that people are interested in this particular topic. So that's why we can't just rely on search volume. We have to look for other sources of qualification to see if these ideas are worth going after. It's not all about search volume. So, looking at these things, and also looking at the people also ask section, like very simple, is air fryer good for Indian cooking? I'm sure you could answer that question. Like, wouldn't probably be that hard. This is the type of things you need to be thinking about. Like, and you think about like, I've just gone into one particular vertical, and look how much opportunity there is in just this very specific, subset of recipes. I mean, there's abundance of opportunities. So that's kind of what I wanted to give you there as far as niching down. Definitely, like I said, build topical authority, relevance, and then dominate the niche before expanding out. And then also, we'll go ahead and look at this. I did a quick crawl of the site just so you could see a couple things. So right now, you just don't have enough content. Like, we need to have way more content than what you currently have. So when we look at this, you only have, if we take away the paginated page there and the contact, we're looking at about 18 pieces of content. That's just not enough. Like you're going to need way more than that. Now, you have tons of ideas to go after, so that should be pretty easy. So you just need to get in the habit of pumping out new pieces of content. I would aim for like maybe one a week. Just aim for like one new blog post a week, and just make that your target. Like no matter what's going on in life, I'm going to get that one blog post done, and that's it. And think about it, you get one blog post a week. That's 52 new blog posts a year. So do that for 2 years, you're at over 100 new blog posts. That means 100 new keywords. So if you have that level of consistency, it's pretty hard not to succeed as long as you're targeting the right keywords, right? So that's the first thing. One thing I like to see here is that you had a lot of internal links, unique internal links going to these, which means that your architecture is actually pretty good. So I would keep up with what you're doing there. That's a really good thing. Now we'll go over here. Another thing I like to see was the word count. So like all of your content assets, really high word counts. That's a good sign. Like I said, it's not all about word count, right? Like we need to make sure that the words are actually high quality. So we need to go through and clean all these up and make them as high quality as possible. And then also crawl depth. I like seeing this. All of your pages are within 2 clicks or less. That's really, really good. Never really want to go beyond 3. So once again, a really nice job there. Now, back to what I was talking about earlier with the link gap. You have a lot of pages that don't really have links. And I'll close this up so you can see. We'll hide this, and you'll see the pages that don't really have links are the ones that need to have links the most, right? So these are all of these pages are all keyword targeted pages that don't have links. So we need to get links to these pages if you want to perform. Like there's no other option. So you can do all this stuff I said. Yes, you can get really far doing this, but at the end of the day, you're going to need to build the authority of the site, not just hitting the homepage, but hitting these deep pages too. You need to make up both gaps. So, and then like I said, improve loading speed and narrow the link gap. So that's basically it. Any questions for me? Or maybe I should look at the comment section here. Let's see. Building an email list is an amazing idea. Yes, I can't recommend it enough. And this applies to any vertical that you guys are in, like build an email list. Like most of my revenue in my business comes from my email list. That's how powerful it is. It's insane. It really is. So yeah, shoot any questions that you guys have. I would love to answer them. All right. What will happen to existing rankings of keywords if we change the WordPress theme? Nothing. Nothing should happen. Yeah. Nothing should happen at all, unless all of a sudden you no indexed all your pages, or you change the site architecture in some way. That's really the only way. But otherwise, the design shouldn't make a difference. In fact, it should improve performance, because if you go to a leaner, cleaner design, it's going to load faster. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to run now. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll jump on again soon. Actually, Tuesday, given the new baby doesn't come. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.